Hello again. I was afraid that was going to happen this morning, and sure enough, there it went. Uh, I don't know what the problem is, and I don't know that I have the wherewithal to try to figure that one out either. So in my case, I'm just going to say I'm using this way until it no longer works. I only have another week until I start using Facebook or YouTube Live. So that's the case. That's what I'm going to do. Um, Please, somebody let me know if you see me here. Yep, I think I am live. I don't see anybody talking. There's the other one. Okay, good. All right. Well, hello, everybody, again. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea. And again, let's sit back and chat about what is going on in the skies above. Because it's Monday, we'll take a look at not only what is going on today, but look outward at the week. But also a couple of things happened toward the end of the week last week that we did not get to talk about because I couldn't come on air. And so we want to review a little bit about that. And then we'll take a look at where we are in the Pleiadian-Earth energy. If we have time, we'll look at the energy of the new Human Design Gene Keys week and what the stories might hold for that. And let's start with, where is the moon today? Well, I could have guessed where the moon was. In fact, I did. I made a really good guess that the moon must be in Capricorn because I could feel the stirring in the vibe of our leaders of this country, but also from around the world, where there was this like power struggle going on between politics and doctors. So I thought to myself this morning, well, the moon must be in Capricorn. And sure enough, it is in Capricorn. And then early this morning was in a trine, a smooth flow of the energy between the two planets. The moon was in a trine to Uranus, which Uranus is in fellow Earth sign Taurus, while the moon is in Earth sign Capricorn. So Capricorn energy, much more cautious, common sense, sort of down to earth energy. This is the energy that is concerned with our goals and our plans and our strategies. What strategy are we going to use to move forward? What we're hearing a lot right now is, what strategy are we going to use to move out of quarantines or the lockdowns that different states have? And we have the doctors saying one thing about the safety of doing something like that, coming back out of that, versus the political figures who are far more concerned with the economy and jobs and things like that. So we have to come into this somehow delicate balance of the two. I mean, we can't just not have an economy. I mean, we still need to be able to trade with one another, etc. But we also know that by releasing these quarantines too soon, we might be risking a second wave of this virus, and it could be even more dangerous than the first one. So we are finding ourselves in the need for a balance of sorts between the needs of both of these halves of our lives. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out this week. But this is a sign in Capricorn. The moon is very resourceful. So there may be some really unique and awesome or innovative ways that we can deal with this. And I would bet because of the, what is that saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. Because of the necessity of the economy and the need to keep people working and out there in the world, that likely we will see some very resourceful solutions to these very tricky problems that we're experiencing. And that's what Capricorn energy is really good for, right? Capricorn can see, it really does a more focused job bringing itself into the details and being able to see all the ins and outs of something. And it is enduring energy. It is the energy of overcoming obstacles, for perseverance, for staying the path. And that enduring energy is there with us through the moon's transit of Capricorn. Now, the moon in Capricorn also brings up the energies around responsibility, or response ability. And that then speaks to our being able to, instead of reactions to energies or to things that are popping up in our world, to be able to respond to what is happening in our world. And from that response, then we can dedicate our commitment to something. We are called to use higher standards during a moon transit in Capricorn, as this is a sign that's really about structure, form, reputation, and authority. So when we're thinking about the moon's move through the sign of Capricorn, remember the moon is our soul energy. It is our emotional selves. It is our soul selves. And in a sign like Capricorn, where it's very business oriented and very government oriented, very institutional, we may be coming up with two different ends of the spectrum. And, not to underplay this, but there's also that North Node and South Node. Remember the axis? Let me see if I can share my chart and show it to you, or share my screen and show that chart to you, because it reminded me this morning when I was looking at Capricorn energy that our North and South Node are still across the signs of Cancer and Capricorn. And here we go, right here. If you're seeing the chart, you should be. Here's the sign of Capricorn. And right here at 1 degree, 37 minutes, remember this backed into the sign of Capricorn from 29 degrees and moves backwards through the sign. And it's now at the 1.5 degrees. And that means the North Node is at 1.5 degrees of Cancer. The North Node is the direction we are pushing into, while the South Node holds the old. It holds the establishment. There we have that, maybe. The established ways of doing things. But the North Node pushes us in a new direction, and that is the direction that we are meant to be moving toward, which is much more about safety and security, but also about nurturing and taking care of one another and doing what's right by the family group or the community or the state or the nation, even if we're talking about that. But also looking at how all the parts and the pieces are interconnected for us as we move forward. It's only going to be another few weeks, May 5th, I believe it is, when the nodes shift out of Cancer and Capricorn and into Gemini and Sagittarius. That is when I think things will really lighten up and change, although there's that particular axis also has its own unique irritations and problems and the need to move into new territories. So we'll talk more about that later. But I just wanted to remind you of that, because right now, of course, with the moon in Capricorn, it reminds us that, these big functioning institutions like a government or the medical establishment, all of those kinds of things have their Achilles heels. And we've been seeing them very clearly, right? And what it tells us is that we need to move to this other direction. So more planning, more with an eye to that of humanity. And what does that look like if we're going to take care of our people, which people are the biggest asset any country has, any group has. It's the people, right? What would this country be if it wasn't for the people? Where would the 1% be if it wasn't for the 99% of us buying their products or using their services that propelled them to the top? And they seem to forget about that, right? They forget about that. We, as the 99%, forget about that as well. We forget the power that we have when we choose to push in a specific direction. Like if we're pushing for nurturing and caring and preparing the nation for problems in the future, then that's where the 1% has to go, because we're using our dollars to push in that direction. Just look at what happened with toilet paper, right? it only, it's a funny story, but anyway. So we have this idea now that we have to push forward, and we have to be committed to being response able. I would say that the epic failure of the COVID-19 virus is about our not being able to respond, and that everything about this has been a reaction. right? We're always in reaction. It seems like we're behind the 8 ball all the time, where other nations seemingly were right on top of it. And even though they might have had issues, they put the resources behind what was needed in order to get the people where they needed to be. So there is a mindfulness here that I think everybody needs to take on about our roles in society. That if we're going to make a society like the United States or Canada or any country, which is a society, if we're going to make that work, then we have to look to our stature and our reputation and to do things that are supportive of the people. You know, the United States especially, we do a lot of chatting about humanitarianism and, you know, blasting other countries when they do things that aren't very humane. But look at what our track record has been over the last couple of years. So as we're winding down this north node, south node across Cancer and Capricorn, these are the things that we really need to look at. Are we walking our talk? Have we been mindful of the role that we're playing? Have we applied high standards to everything that we're doing? And if the answer is no, then it's time for us to make those changes so that the next time, and you know there will be a next time, something happens of major import in the world, that we're ready, right? That we're ready. Now, some of the things we have to watch out for with the moon in Capricorn, of course, is it's a serious sign, and we can become too serious and too authoritative. We can become too rigid, and we can also close our mind down where we are unable or unwilling to see all sides of the story, where we aren't willing to see the bigger picture and also the smaller picture, where we need to see both. And so added to that, we have some battle lines being drawn here for the week ahead. And I want to talk about those in just a moment. Let me go over to Facebook here and see if I'm still live because I don't know. I'm assuming I might be. Yes, I'm still live. So using the old way, it gets me long term here. I don't know what the new way problem is, but we'll see someday here. So good morning, Laura Passcammer. It's great to see you. Mimi says hello again. Good morning, Monique. And anybody else whose comments I might have missed, I apologize for that, but glad to see everybody out there. And yes. Just making sure. Okay, now let's go on and take a look a little bit at what our week brings for us this week. If we look ahead, today, of course, is kind of the mildest of the days. We've already had the trine to Uranus, so most of the fireworks have already been in play or are in play. That happened fairly early this morning. There are no other moon contacts the rest of the day, although the moon is not in a void. And as we look ahead to tomorrow and Wednesday, here's where our battle lines are beginning to be drawn, because the sun, which is the force of all life here on this planet, moves into a square or a challenging aspect to both Pluto and Jupiter. And it's interesting because I think what we see, at least here, the model I can show you is the battle lines that are drawn between Trump and Dr. Fauci. Or Fauci, I think is how you say his name. The sun square Pluto brings up power struggles and struggles between different groups. And then we get into the square with Jupiter, and it magnifies it and makes it bigger and overblows it, right? Each side is overblown. And one side being super cautious and the other side saying, let's just, throw caution to the wind. And somewhere in the middle is going to be the truth, right? Somewhere in the middle. I read a really good article, I think it was yesterday, and it was written by a doctor who is not in the midst of any of this. I mean, he's been an epidemiologist at one of the universities here in this country. And he had this very specific list of things that we should see before we release people out of quarantine and steps. I mean, it was really a very nice plan, and it made so much sense. And that's what I think we're missing, that we need a plan. What is the plan? How do we get out of this? So that's the possibility that maybe this power struggle brings to the forefront, is the need for a plan, right? How do we do it? Some states are not having as many problems as others. And as we move from west to east, we've seen this sort of rolling expansion of the virus. And so how do we, maybe in states where the virus has reached beyond its peak, how do we start to let go of those quarantine measures and get back to the business of our lives? And he had a very clear-cut set of circumstances in the ways that we do that. So there are plans out there. I don't know that anybody in the positions of power have gotten that idea yet, or that memo. We'll see what happens as the week wears on. But I would expect Tuesday and Wednesday in particular, tomorrow and Wednesday, that we're going to see that battle going on. Now, add to that, on Tuesday, tomorrow, we end up at the crisis of consciousness point in our new moon transits. Remember, we get to the first quarter 7 days after the new moon. That's our crisis of action, where suddenly there are stumbling blocks and there are things in our way, and we have to decide, what are we going to do? What can we, move around? What can we, what was wrong with our plan to begin with? Then we get to the full moon, and it's a releasing time, and it's a time for maybe course corrections. And then we get to tomorrow's point with the moon cycle, and it is the crisis of consciousness. Now we have to do what's right morally or ethically, and we have to maybe change what's going on in our minds, because we may realize that the whole problem hasn't been anything out in the physical world. It's much more in our own mental or emotional body. Maybe even in our spiritual body, where we're not quite all connected. And so we come to that crisis point. That'll be tomorrow. As we move through, Thursday's the only day this week, as I looked through, Thursday's like the mildest day of the week. Plan on Thursday for having fun and doing things. The moon will be in Aquarius. It'll be a day to be quirky and unique and just have some fun. Friday, now we have Saturn in a quincunx to the north node. Let me go back to my chart here, sharing my screen again, and maybe I can show you what that looks like. I guess no, I'm not doing it that way then. Okay, let's do this again. And then I can share my screen. There we go. Here's our chart, and I want to show you, here is Saturn. You can just barely see it. Let me see if I can make this bigger. There we go. I can make this bigger. Here's our planet Saturn. He's sandwiched in here between Mars on one side and Chariklo, Pallas Athena, Jupiter, Pluto, the north, or the part of fortune on the other. And he's literally sitting at 1 degree, 21 minutes of the sign of Aquarius. And he will be in a quincunx to the north node, which is, as I said already, sitting at 1 degree, 37 minutes of the sign of Cancer down here. So here's our north node, and and you see this green dashed line. That green dashed line tells you the nature of what's going on, and the nature is a very disturbing one. There's a disturbance in the force here between the energy of Saturn and the energy of destiny, and what it is that destiny is pushing us to do versus what Saturn in Capricorn. Remember, Saturn in Capricorn is a traditionalist. I mean, Saturn in Aquarius, excuse me, is trying to become, is holding the line between traditional and the new, or let's say traditional and modern. And he's the co-ruler here, right? He and Uranus both rule this sign. And that those two planets already bring up a titanic struggle, right? They were titans, right? In mythology, these two do not mix, oil and water, right? And so we already have this nature here where there's a disturbance with Saturn trying to look toward the future, but still maybe hanging on too much to the past. And our need then to be able to blend the best of the past in planning for a successful future. And that, of course, includes the people. Cancer is a sign ruled by the moon. The moon represents the people. And the people are becoming very Aquarian, and they are looking out for one another, and they are less and less over time, less and less concerned with themselves, but more concerned about us as a group or a family. So it'll be an interesting path, I think, as we begin this move out of Cancer and into Gemini. What are we going to take? Where are we taking our destiny? And it does seem like a huge split is in store for us as we move forward. And, times where, well, anyway, we're not going there. We're going to use this energy of the split to see how it is that we can bring together different sides and make a new whole. That's what I'm putting out there. But in the meantime, we have this energy on Friday where these are not getting along so well. And it forces us, a quincunx or a 150-degree relationship in planets forces us to sacrifice, to adapt, to become more flexible, and to, work the energies in a way where we can draw from the best of each one of those signs and bring them together, as opposed to, just staunchly walking off in different directions from one another. So that'll be on Friday. And we'll talk maybe more about that as time goes on here. Friday and Saturday, Mercury moves into a sextile with both Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars, right? Venus and Mars, the masculine and the feminine principle. Mercury acting as the communication between those two energies. That should be an interesting couple of days. And then on Sunday, the sun moves out of the sign of Aries and into Taurus, and changes the energy to more earthiness and out of the fire. Although you've got to know, as soon as that sun moves into Taurus, it starts to intermingle with the energies of Uranus. There could be some surprises, some upsets, some ahas, some innovations, some unique, maybe genius instances out there in the world. Who knows? But that will be toward the end of the week. And literally, it isn't for another week and a half that the sun actually comes into the exact conjunction. But that planets apply pressure as they start to move closer together or closer to the relationship that they're making. So, okay, we got that. We got that. All right, so now let's take a look backwards for a moment. Well, first, let me go over here and make sure there aren't any questions or comments that I need to deal with. Good morning, Rob Parkinson. Debbie Tibbetts-Tumio, good morning. Asa, good morning. Kamal, hello. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Lovely to have you with us. And for most of you who maybe didn't realize it, I still am dealing with this very stiff neck and had done so since April 1st, but it came to a critical mass on Thursday and Friday. And I can still only move my neck about so far that direction. But lovingly, you guys sent me a ton of energy. Londa worked on me for a couple of hours on Friday. I've been to the chiropractor. I've been drinking a ton of water, trying to do everything I can to get myself back to normal. At least now it doesn't hurt so bad to hold my head up. So that's better. That's good. Michelle Gay, good morning. It's good to see you out there early in the morning. So let's move backwards in time then to Friday. And on Friday, a couple of things were happening that we need to look at for the future here. And one of those is that the Venus, the planet of our values, of our money, and of our relationships, entered into the retrograde zone. And that is at 5 degrees of Gemini, and she will retrograde. Now she's not retrograde yet, right? But she's entering into that territory. When she gets to 25 degrees of Gemini, she will hit retrograde. She will move backwards back to the position she was at on Friday. So the reason we chart this is because now we can watch what's happening over these next several days. She doesn't turn retrograde until May 13th, so we have time. But we can sort of watch what's going on with our finances, what's going on in our relationships. How are the values that we are living changing? And are we living our values, right? I always question this one, even within myself. Am I walking my talk? And it's so easy to get out of that, right? It's so easy sometimes to say one thing and do another. And this is the thing that we're going to be looking at while Venus is moving through this part of our charts. So you've got to look to where Gemini is in your chart. And Gemini, I think I just showed it to you. Let me share my screen again. Hopefully I didn't close that. I did. Of course I did. Let me go back and share my screen again. And here we go, because I want all of you who have your charts now to look and find Gemini. Here's Gemini. It's the sign of the twins, right? So it looks like the Roman numeral 2 with the top and the bottom. And here's our planet Venus. Today she's sitting at 8 degrees, but she moved into the retrograde zone at 5 degrees. And she'll move forward to about this point here in Gemini, and then she'll move backwards and then move forward again through the same position, but in the summertime. So as we are preparing for this, then what is it that we might need to rework within ourselves, right? It was interesting because on that day, Friday, my husband was furloughed from his job, and that came as a total shock and surprise. We thought as an essential industry that he would keep working, that we wouldn't have this issue. But his boss called that afternoon and said that they needed to furlough people. And a furlough is different from a layoff in that you still have your benefits and all of they're expecting you to come back, right? So they're not taking away your benefits. It's not like a layoff where there's that separation. It's only a partial separation, but he will indeed be able to receive unemployment insurance, which that whole thing is interesting too, because right now, if you are laid off, you have the extra, or furloughed, you have the extra money that comes in because of that. So for a short time, it looks like he's going to make more money than he does when he works. So it's weird, right? So that is a money issue, right? So it might be affecting us in our work or the way that we earn money, and it might be affecting us in the resources that we have. And so this may be a time for us to really pull in those, not out of fear, but to pull in those money strings, right? To be a little more resourceful and to make sure that whatever you do purchase over the next several months, several weeks anyway, for sure, is that you're very clear about what you're doing, because it's hard to we don't see value clearly when Venus hits into retrograde. So these are the things that we're looking at right now. Then as well, Mercury, the planet of communication that has been in the sign of Pisces, right? Since early in the year, early in February. And then he retrograded in Pisces, remember, and moved backwards, and then he moved forward, albeit slowly. And while he was doing that dance in the sign that rules viruses and bacteria and all the little unseen things, our immune system, etc., he had been creating some, noise around that. If you remember correctly, that's when everything was beginning to boil up to the surface. Well, now he's moved on into Aries. Now I'm afraid what we're seeing is that chomping at the bit, right? We're all like, I'm done with this. We want to be done with this part of our experience. We want to move on. We want to get back to normal, whatever that means anymore. And so Mercury here is probably not really being a good friend to any of us, because he's really ramping up our minds thinking about getting free of this and getting past this and getting back to normal. Now, the first planet, of course, he runs into is Salacia and Chiron and the Black Moon Lilith. So at least initially, there's some resistance to this, right? This idea of becoming free of all of those things that are happening. There is also the sun in a conjunction to Eris. Eventually, Mercury will catch up to Eris. More discord, more things that there will be to argue about over the next few weeks. So let's see, from April 10th until April 27th, Mercury will be in Aries. So on the 27th, he'll move from Aries into Taurus, changing up the energy again, the nature of communication. So right now we're going to see fiery rhetoric. Aries is a fire sign. It's ruled by Mars. There's impetuousness. There's impulsivity. There's anger, conflict, upset, confrontation that can be part of the rhetoric that we're going to hear. In your own voice, then you'll want to be monitoring what it is you're speaking, how it is you're speaking, and how we treat one another, at least with the voice, right? Not being in that confrontational mode. And so anyway, that's coming up. So for the next few weeks, then we have this energy of Mercury in Aries. We're probably going to hear a lot of arguing and fighting and differences of opinion, polarity, etc., etc. So don't let it disturb your life, right? You're in the know. Be calm, cool, and collected. Be nice, etc. Mercury also rules the mind. And in Aries, then the mind might be put to use creating something new, right? Focusing on what comes next. And even though we may not be able to take action yet on what comes next, it doesn't stop us from using our minds to plan that out, right? Or to get the things together that we'll need when that happens, to do what we need to do in order to be ready when life again goes back to a bit of normalcy. All right, so those were the only big things that really happened over the weekend. I'm looking to see, yeah, everything else, I mean, not that there wasn't anything happening. I mean, people were still getting the virus and things like that, but it seemed to have dialed back. We were having a little bit different conversation. We're looking forward a bit more right now. Okay, now also last week, let's see, no, this was really on Friday, the sun and the earth changed gates in human design, and that means then we are focused on new energy. The sun moved to the gate 42, which is the gate of completion in human design. In your gene keys, it's a little bit different. Remember, the gene keys takes a holographic look at your human design. So it's more arranged in shadow and gift and siddhi. There's frequency changes in the gene keys that at first glance we don't see in human design. So in human design, the gate 42 is called the gate of completion. It's where we complete things or we finish them. We use our energy to get ready to move on. But in the gene keys, this takes on a completely different look. This is about in the shadow. It's about expectation, and isn't it interesting that expectation is a shadow energy here, and then the gift energy is detachment, right? Being able to release ourselves from expectation, and then in the highest expression, it's celebration. It's the party. Richard Rudd talks about this as the expectation station, right, in our human design or in our gene keys. This is where we are always expecting things will be different tomorrow, and where we are putting off living in the now in favor of what comes tomorrow. So you might recognize this as we are saving for a rainy day, and or we are, when I retire, that's when I'll travel. Or when my kids grow up and move out, that's when I'll start my life, or any number of ways in which this can play out in your personal life. After the virus, then I'll do this, right? And even though there may be some things that stop us from doing all the things we want to do right now, it does, the expectation station is always seeing us putting off things until later and not living here in this moment. So a lot of the lesson of this week is about living in the now, right? Being in the moment. Now, the earth, of course, she is the one that brings up the challenge to the sun to be able to do the completion piece or the celebration piece. And the earth is still sitting on a spleen gate. Let me share a human design chart here with you guys on the screen, and you can see what I'm talking about here. So here is the spleen center right here. And at gate 32 is where we have the earth sitting. And the gate 42 right here is where the sun is sitting. So the sun is on the sacral. It is about moving our energy in a specific direction, taking action in a specific direction, where the 32 is the earth, and the earth is the evolutionary component here. The earth is bringing up, where are we evolving to, right? She brings up the challenge to evolve towards celebration. And the challenge here is the fear of failure. The shadow energy is this idea of, I think sometimes it's also the fear of success, but it's that fear that holds us back here. In the gift level, it is preservation. In its highest expression, it's veneration. In human design, we call it the gate of endurance. Here's where we are able to stay the course, right? And for good or ill. And when we have something sitting here at gate 54, which is the gate of ambition or drive, or the drive to enlightenment, it can complete a channel of workaholicism. And so that can be we don't have anything sitting at 54 right now, but if you do in your own personal chart, you may find yourself putting a lot of energy to trying to do something that maybe just isn't available right now to do. And if it doesn't work out, then failure is what you may feel, when in reality, failure here is it's just another way of looking at what doesn't work, right? It doesn't work that way. So let's try something new. So failure is the fear that I'm going to fail, that nothing I do is going to work. Where if Thomas Edison had thought that way, we'd never have had the light bulb, right? Many things out there would never have come to fruition if a failure was a reason to stop keeping on, right, or moving forward. So this week, endurance, the earth is challenging us to endure, to persevere, to preserve, and to venerate. So keeping what's good, what's worthwhile, what's worth keeping, letting go, shedding everything else, and being able then to move forward into that celebratory energy. So that's our sun and our earth for the week. I think I will have time. We'll maybe read the story of the sun. Let's look at Pleiadian-Earth energy right now. Let me stop sharing here. The Pleiadian-Earth energy today is 9 devoting. Devoting energy was Ak, or dog, in the Mayan calendar. And of course, as soon as I say dog, you probably are thinking about your loyal companion. And indeed, what we have in devoting energy is this idea of loyalty. And it is really an energy about sharing and caring. It's about love. It's about friendship. It's about building community, right? Dogs run in packs. And irregardless of the animal aspect of the pack, it is about where they are supportive to one another. It's a community. And then recognition that loyalty to a person or to an idea or an ideal is not correct, right? That's the lesson here, that when we have people out in the world who are insisting that you be loyal to them, or insisting on your loyalty and then calling you names if you're not, or taking revengeful action against you if they term you not loyal, that is the wrong use of this energy. The right use of this energy is when loyalty comes from the heart. It comes from that connection that we feel with that person or with that idea. And it is in integrity. It is when we are claiming our own authority in that. We're not giving away ourselves to that person or that idea. We are holding ourselves as a part of it. So loyalty to people and ideas, nope. But loyalty to yourself and coming from the heart, yes. Now, the number 9 is the universal energy of the day, and that is an energy of harmony. It is the essence of harmony. It is how can we see how everything is interconnected, and that how everything is happening in its right and perfect way. So here in this energy, we're learning to blend all those differences into creating harmony from opposites. And that's big. That's a big lesson, because that's not something that we do naturally, or we haven't done naturally. I think humanity in and of itself will do that naturally, without the artificial constraints that society puts on us about who it thinks that we should be, or how we get the message of who it is that we're supposed to be, how it is that we're supposed to do what we do, and all that type of thing. So we're learning to blend all of those pieces together into a new coherent whole. And here we get it again, another lesson about following our hearts. Following our hearts. Remember, this was the week that began with one feeling. So this is our emotional connection to all of these things. And so we're using our feeling energy, emotional energy, as a compass to tell us when we're on the right path and when we're not. And that's the mature use of your emotions, right? Not the immature use of emotions, where it's in reaction to, as opposed to in response to something. All right. Let's see what people are thinking and saying. Kamal says, I have a question related to my business project, which has been started today, and hope it will complete smoothly. It has a factor of risk, so there is a fear. Please tell me if the sky is in our favor. Well, that depends, Kamal, because where the moon is right now is not necessarily favorable to having started a new project. But I'm wondering if perhaps you started this sooner than right now, right? That you're just getting to a culmination point. And if that's the case, and you're ready to launch something, it might be good to wait until the 23rd, where we have the new moon. And I realize you're in Pakistan, so likely it may be into the 24th for you when the new moon actually hits. So maybe right now do the tweaking, right? Look at everything, make sure that maybe do a test launch to see if any glaring mistakes happen, or if there's anything that you really need to work with that before you actually launch it. And the risk factor, yeah, definitely there would be a risk in launching now because of where the moon is. But if you wait just a little bit longer, just a week, right? A week, you should be fine. Okay. Ilaria, good morning. Wishing I can soon have a reading with you. You know, so many different pieces of wisdom. I know one time somebody said to me, you should write a book. And I went, there's just too much in my head. There's no way I could get it out of my head and into a book, because it would be jumping all over the place like I do here in the morning. But if somebody could just reach in and tap in and start to pull things out, and then we could put things in categories where it belonged, then maybe I could do that. It's Jocelyn's birthday. Happy birthday, Jocelyn. That is Michelle's daughter. She says we're struggling with emotions. Sounds like it's in the air. Yeah, I bet you are, because I mean, here are kids who are used to having their birthdays with all of their friends, right? With all of their classmates around them, taking cupcakes to school, being sung happy birthday by 30 kids in your classroom, or having a party. And now all of that is like cut off. Maybe she can have a Zoom party, Michelle, where all the kids can get online and they can chat and talk and sing and eat cake together or something like that. But from all of us, our hearts go out to Jocelyn, wishing her a very happy birthday. Let's see. Cacao bliss to all from Cosmic Colibri. Yolaria, I wish I knew what that means. I mean, of course, cacao is chocolate. I like that. Chocolate bliss. And I could do with some chocolate. All right, so now let's do something really quickly here. I want to pull, remember last week we pulled an animal card on Monday, and the animal card was Wombat, and Wombat said stay home or be at home or something like that. So let's see if we have an animal card that can give us some advice for moving into the week ahead, right? So, oh, I have cards. What did I just do? Oh my goodness, hold on, because somehow I managed to turn the cards the wrong way. No, okay, I got it right. Okay, so an animal card for the week, our guide. I thought that was kind of cool that happened last week that way. And this week we have, my favorite, Hummingbird Spirit. Hummingbird Spirit is the spirit of be here now. How funny is that? Right? We were just talking about being in the moment. And there we have Hummingbird Spirit, card number 34, which is a 7. So we have the number of research, we have the number of spirit, we have the number of the metaphysical aspects of the world. And let's see what Hummingbird Spirit means for us. 34. Here's the message from the oracle. The hummingbird's wings beat so swiftly it can hover in seeming stillness as it drinks deeply from a flower. Hummingbird Spirit comes to remind you that the beauty and sweetness of life is in the eternal now, the timeless present. Here and now, you are becoming the person you wish to be to have the experiences you wish to have. Focus your energy on the flower before you, for what you desire is being provided. Yes, there are blossoms everywhere. The choices can be dazzling. Hummingbird Spirit's message is that you have no need to go about in search of something better, for all that you require and desire is before you. You will know this as you become still, feeling your connection to Spirit who loves you unconditionally and will always provide for you. Lovely. Hummingbird. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge hummingbird fan. If you go to my website, it's all about hummingbirds, right? That's even my little logo is the hummingbird. It makes me feel like the professor of joy, the professor of being in that delight. Okay, let's do this now. Here is the card for the sun today. Remember, this is our Rosie Aronson book, The Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, The 64 Faces of Awakening. We find profound stories in here related to the gene keys and to human design. And here is the card for the sun this week. Non-attachment from the gate 42. Look at that face. Just a lovely face. Look at those little apple cheeks. You just want to squeeze those little cheeks. Let's read the story. So remember, in this gate or in this gene key, it is the gift of detachment. It is the shadow of expectation and the Siddhi celebration. Woohoo, right? Detachment represents the process of letting go of control over your life physically, mentally, and emotionally. And here's the story. Known as the eternal optimist, I was always on my way towards something. The fulfilling relationship, the exciting job, the radiant health. I knew once I achieved that perfect life, I'd be able to rest and be happy. So I rushed past every milestone, always grasping and expecting, always willing to put off my enjoyment in the now for a better future moment. As I got older, I began to obsess about time. There was so much to do, and it felt like time was running out. Until it did. During a basic medical checkup, something unexpected was found. I was diagnosed with a deadly illness. Suddenly, my life was spinning out of control. I was terrified, enraged. I have no time for this, I screamed inside, secretly feeling I'd failed at life. My optimism vanished, along with my faith in myself and others. For the next few years, I exhausted all of my savings, as well as my loved ones, as I leapt from doctor to doctor, from conventional to alternative treatments. Terrified nothing would work, I abandoned each treatment before it had a chance to succeed. My practitioners saw me as flaky, but all I saw was disappointment and the slow death of my dreams. Finally, I became so ill that I was hospitalized. There was no spark left in me until I met my roommate, a child who was dying too. Her spirit was so full of joy and wisdom that my heart melted. She called me her buddy and shared about her own impending death with an acceptance and peace that put me to shame. The day she died, my heart literally stopped beating. The doctors tried to revive me while I floated up and out of my body and was drawn into a tunnel of indescribable light, color, and music. I felt a love beyond anything I'd ever known. Then I saw her, my friend from the hospital, skipping through a field of flowers and into my arms. Elated, I scooped her up as she whispered, "It's time to go back, buddy. There's still so much to celebrate." The next thing I knew, I was back in my body, feeling calm and full of gratitude despite the pain. That was many years ago when I first became known as a medical miracle. Now, when people look into my eyes, they feel my trust in life. I am not afraid for myself or for them. I've made peace with death. Now I am free to live, love, and appreciate each moment for the precious gift it is. My gift to you. I bring to you the gift of non-attachment. I'm here to remind you that everything in life must come to an end so that something new can be born. It is time to surrender to your life and accept your death. This does not mean you stop desiring, caring, or feeling. In fact, I want you to feel and breathe even more intensely than you ever have. Nor does this mean you can't hold expectations, just hold them lightly without attachment. Trust the intelligence of your life with its ebbs and flows, joys and pains. Even the most sorrowful states can be enjoyed if you can let your attachments fall away. Remember, you are an unfolding tale, its author and reader all at once. Never miss an opportunity to celebrate your magnificent self and life. Love that. Just love that. Here are your questions for contemplation, which I will post later for you. Where are you resisting change? For example, the aging of your body, the individuation of your children, an old way of thinking or being. What is coming to an end or needing to die in your life? What or who do you need to let go of? Have you prematurely abandoned a project, relationship, or experience? What would it take for you to have true closure? Embrace a change in your life. Find a concrete and empowering way to celebrate it. Awesome. Great reminders. Great reminders in these days that we live in right now, that this too will pass. And all we have is this moment, right? All we have is this moment in this life. Okay, last look at questions. Everybody's saying happy birthday to Jocelyn. I wish I could sing. If I could sing, I would sing to her. Maybe we could do a virtual sing to her. All right, everybody, that is it for me today. I will post those questions of contemplation later for you. In the meantime, take care. Much love to you all. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.